At first, I'd like to share a passage from the commentary on the Contemplation Sutra written by Master Shan from 7th century. We don't have the entire translation of Master Shantao's work yet, but I heard Reverend Dr. Kenneth Tanaka is working on the translation, and part of the commentary is quoted in our founder Shinran Shogin's master work, Jodo Shinshu. So I record a passage from chapter on Transform Buddhas and Lions of Kyogyo Shinshu. So please in English, please put your palms together. 次に行について心を立てば、しかるに行に二種あり、一つには商業、二つには造業なり。商業というは、もっぱら往生教の行によりて行ずるものは、これを商業と名付く。何者かこれや、一心にもっぱらこの官業、弥陀教、無量寿教等を読受する。また、この章の中についてまた二種あり。一つには一心に弥陀の名号を専念して行住座がみ自節の苦言を問わず年々に捨てざる者はこれを清浄の号と名付くかの仏願に準ずるがゆえにもし大樹等によるはすなわち名付けて助号とすと Next, concerning establishment, trusting, and relation to practice, there are two kinds of practices, right practice and sundry practices. Right practice refers to performing practice solely as prescribed in the sutras that teach forth in the Pure. What is this practice? It is to recite solely and single-heartedly the Contemplation Sutra, the Amida Sutra, and the Sutra of the Buddha of immeasurable life. Further, right practice is divided into two. First, single-heartedly practicing the saying of the name of Amida alone, whether walking, standing, sitting or reclining, without regard to the length of time, and without abandoning it from moment to moment. This is called the act of true settlement, for it is in accord with the Buddha's vow. Second, if one engages in worship, sutra recitation, and so on, these are called auxiliary acts. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Nam. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's service. I cannot believe this is the end of August already, and we only have a few more months until the end of the year 2022. But I am enjoying the 2022 so far. We resumed in-person service end of March. We could have successful in-person Obon for the first time in a few years. We used to have these things every year, right? Every day, every Sunday services every week. And we had Obon festival every year. We had Sukiyaki Bazaar, Spring Food Bazaar, these kind of things were happening every year. But, we realized how grateful we were to be able to gather at the temple to listen to the teaching every Sunday. And hope people come back to the festival and have people come back to the festival and fundraisers and such to enjoy it. So it'll be September soon, and I don't think we have big events anymore for this year, but holiday season is getting closer, right? I have not been to Costco or any big stores for a while. But I'm sure that we start to see the Christmas decorations for sale in a few weeks, right? We are still in September, but we see Christmas decorations on sale, right? So I always think it's too early, but I guess people like to prepare for the holiday early enough. Anyway, I don't know how many people are going to attend, but I am looking forward to the Northwest District Convention on September 17th to 18th. And it is going to be held at Ontario, Oregon, and it is going to be hybrid. So I believe many people participate in the convention online too. But this is the first time in a few years. Actually we are going to have IMOP students. IMOP is International Ministerial Orientation Program. They are coming from Japan this year. And we will have two students. They are coming to the convention and they are going to give the Japanese Dharma talks. So I'm the chairperson for the Japanese service, so I have to be there physically. So I have to drive to Ontario for 6 hours drive, I guess, right? But I love driving, so it's okay. But these two students, I gave a lecture for them last year online. So I saw them online, but I'm looking forward to meet them in person too. And when I was an IMAP student, I went to LA Bethune, Orange County Buddhist Church, and Sacramento Bethune, and stayed there for a week to experience the temple and services in the United States. And it was a really nice experience. So I hope new IMAP students will gain some experiences here and come back to the United States or return to the United States as overseas ministers one day. So we only have how many ministers now? 30 something. We have over 60 some temples and we only have 30 something ministers. And we have a few ministers to be, so that's okay, but we still have a lot of temples to cover. So, that's one of the reasons I have to go to Sacramento 9 days a week, 9 days a month from October. So I hope we have more ministers so that one minister stay one temple and they don't have to cover any other temples. But anyway, so I think it was last week, my daughter asked me, why we do this when we open the service book? So do we have service book here? Yeah. So before opening the service book, we do this, right? This action is called itadaku. Itadaku. The Chinese translation means, the Chinese character, itadaku, cho, means top or summit, top or summit. And itadaku means to receive, accept. Okay, so do you know what is contained in the service book? That are the words of Buddhas and the masters from the past, right? Paintings by famous painters, no one touched them with bare hands, right? If you go to the museum, you don't touch the paintings with your bare hands. And those who work at the museum, they wear gloves to protect the paintings, right? So I believe that is also the way of showing respect to the paintings by wearing the gloves, right? Then if the one don't care about the value of the paintings, then the person touches the paintings without wearing any gloves. So receiving the words of the Buddhas and masters, this is done by the same manner, We are showing our respect to the words of the Buddhas and masters. That is why we do this when we open the service book, to show our respect to the Buddha, right? And I think I have talked about this before, but when I was taking a class on Jodo Shinshu when I was younger, I opened the writings of Shin and Shomi, just like I opened the magazines, right? Then my teacher scolded me, saying, don't you ever open the works of Shin and Shomi now. So since then, I'm really careful about how to handle the service book and works of the masters. So, we show our respect to the words contained in the service book by doing this itadaku action. Then we chant the words of the sutras and commentaries aloud, right? So what is the reason of chanting, right? What is a reason of chanting? So this relates to the words I have shared at the beginning of my talk today. And according to Master Shantao, there are two types of practices. So they are right practice and sundry practice. And there are 5 right practices. Okay? Recitation, contemplation, worshiping, action the name, praise and make offerings. So these are the 5 right practices taught by Shantao, Master Shantao. So chanting or recitation of the sutras are one of the right practices. But Master Shantao also said that there are 2 within right practices. And acting the name of Amida Buddha is the act of true settlement, and other 4 are auxiliary practices. So the core of the right practices is action, the name, Namo Amida Butsu. Nembutsuge is the core of the right practice. And other 4 practices are helping us to utter the name, Namo Amida Butsu. So the recitation of the sutra is right practice, but it is also the auxiliary practice. Then, technically saying, we don't have to chant sutras because the core of the right practice is Nembutsuge, right? So ultimately, that is true. We don't have to chant sutras. But recitation of the sutra is often explained as Buddhoku Sandan, praising the virtue of the Buddha. Praising the virtue of Buddha. And I was taught the recitation of the sutra as Buddhoku Sandan, praising the virtue of the Buddha. So it is an expression of our gratitude for the virtues of the Buddha. So in one sense, this is true, that we chant sutra to appreciate Buddhas. And the words of the commentaries, such as Jumirai, which we chanted today, is the words of praising the virtue of Amida Buddha, written by Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, one of the 7 Pure Masters. So that is true that the recitation of the sutra is praising the virtue of the Buddha. But I also think that recitation of the sutras help us utter Nembutsuge too, It does not mean that we should recite sutras to say the Nembutsuge, but, do you remember the feeling of getting together at the temple for the first time in a long time to recite a sutra together? Right? It was the end of March this year. We were able to gather at the temple for the first time in 2 years, and we chanted. I forgot, was it Jusei or Juni, right? But we chanted the chanting, the sutra aloud, right? And it was so powerful, wasn't it? And because it was so powerful, Nembutsu naturally came out from my mouth, saying Nammanda, Nammanda. Reciting the sutras by myself is not so powerful, but by feeling the power of everybody chanting together, I felt how grateful it is to hear the powerful sound of the Dharma together at the temple. So, what I want to say is that don't be shy, okay? Don't be shy and recite sutras aloud. Your chanting voice might help others say the Nembutsuge. Chanting was my favorite thing since my childhood. When I attended the services when I was a child, ministers of the district gathered at the temple for special service occasions, and we chanted Amida Kyo really fast. So it was so challenging and fun to catch up with adults, and it was my good training to read hiragana and Chinese characters so quickly, right? So this is one of the reasons I intentionally chant Amida Kyo first, right? I heard from Namiko that Hikaru loved to chant now because he can read hiragana, right? But he hates Amida Kyo because I chant too fast and he cannot catch up, right? But this is a good memory for him, a good memory for OPT Sangha too. When I pass away, I don't know when I pass away, but when I pass away, you remember me as the minister who chanted the Amida Kyo so fast, right? And this memory will lead you to realize the truth of impermanence, right? So there are a lot of things we can learn from just by attending the temple service every Sunday. So, I don't know how many people who have not ever attended the service. They probably watch the service online, but hopefully we see more people at the temple and appreciate the teaching together, and we chant the sutra aloud so that we can say Nembutsuge together. Okay? So thank you all for coming today to today's service, and in closing, we join in Gasho with the Japanese together. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namman Butsu, Namman Butsu, Nam.